help you with this idea phase and kind of get it to someone else. The next one, which I'm talking about more and that I have most experience with, is the angel investor, which is usually just some wealthy individual who's in the same industry that is, now he's got money and they want to invest in startups that are at this stage. After that, then it goes to venture capitalists, which are looking for companies that are a little bit more developed, but that they can explode and expand. And so in each one of these financing rounds, you may be losing a portion of your company, but it's better to own sort of 20% of something that's going to be making billions of dollars than or euros than it is to be on 100% of something that's sort of just petering along. And so as the financing rounds go, I don't know where I was going with this, but yeah, so these are different financing rounds. And so the angel investors are going to be, you want it to be someone in the field that you're in. So definitely
context and know-how.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. All right.
I just have a question. So you said that all these, they tie together. So how does the income statement tie together with balance sheet?
The income statement ties in together because you've got the net income down here, which then becomes, unless dividends are paid, then it becomes retained earnings down here. And retained earnings is an important part of the equity because you've got this initial issuance of shares to the investor, which stays the same. But the equity is moving up and down, and it's moving up and down as a result of the net income changing. So, okay, yeah.
So that's, sorry.
No, go for it.
That's reinvesting in the company, right?
Yeah.
So, well, unless you use it, that will go into cash.
It's always the net income unless dividends are paid, and then dividends come out. Okay, go ahead.
Would you mind just really quickly redefining equity again?
Equity is what's left over after you take all the liabilities away from your assets.
Okay.
So,
Assets minus liabilities.
exactly. Yep. And the official formula, I don't know why they do it this way, because for me it makes more sense to say assets minus liabilities, but they say assets equals liabilities plus equity, but it's just like a different map of it. I don't know why they do it like that. Just to confuse people. So, assets minus liabilities. Equity. Okay. All right, and then we're on to the statement of cash flows. So this is why I brought up the difference between the cash flow and income. And this is, a lot of information. I know it is. And your head's swimming a little bit. It's like, everything's good. It's going to be okay. You can download it later and look through it, more in depth. Cash flows up here. It's starting with the net income, but then you got to throw back in all the non-cash things that have happened. So it's like if you sold a contract, but you haven't gotten the money for it yet, you have to take that away from your cash because it's not actually cash earning. So these are all these adjustments that come into it, the changes in the different, in your inventory. If you buy a bunch of inventory, it's cash, but it's not income, so you got to make these adjustments. And you come to cash flow from operating activities. Yeah.
So one question, the time frame is 1 year now.
Yeah.
So we see 1 year now, but it might be that I have costs or cash goes out until June.
Yeah.
And I might be broke in June, and the income starts beginning on July. Right?
Yeah, that's a big problem because if you're broke, then the company goes bankrupt.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and this is so it is, and I did forget to mention this. Cash flow statements and income statement are periodic, which means they go over a certain period. So like we're talking about a year here, like January 1st to December 31st. But the balance sheet is it's like right now. So it's December 31st, 2014, June 5th, 1945. It's like a specific day, and it's like a snapshot. And so the cash flow statement, like the income statement, is over a period. And yeah, it's very important because these projections are going to show you at the bottom is the change in your cash. It's the change in the cash, and that's going to, if you go into a negative cash situation, it means you're bankrupt. So the projections are really important to figure out, because you can't do that. You got to have financing rounds specifically to avoid that kind of thing from happening. And make sure to put a buffer in too, because the projections are going to say one thing, but the reality might say something different. And so, if you project that you're going to start making money in 6 months, and it takes you 12 months, and you only made enough cash for 6 months, that's going to be bad because you're going to have to either go back to the investor and say, well, we need more money, or make sure you buffer it a bit. So, yeah.
Why zero got, year zero got 1.25? Is that the stock?
Yes,
You
that's
buy.
the stock that's sold.
Before you just buy the stock.
And I should bring up, year zero means like, right now, this is what's happening. It's like, it's not an actual year. It's like, okay, this is the start of it, boom, and then you launch into year one. And so this is for investors, it's telling them, this is the stock, that's the money from the stock that you're selling, that's gonna come into the company, and then we start year one, and that's when all the things. So that's why it says there's nothing going on in year zero except the stock from the investor. So, yeah. And then a whole bunch of things, all these different movements of money. And when you get investing activities, it means like investing in like a factory or investing in equipment or something like that. It's not income, it has nothing to do with income, but you're spending money on it. You know, you got to spend, in this example, 500,000 euros for, I don't know, some building or something like that. And then investment in intangible property, this is like patents, things like that. And so I'm getting back to what we're talking about, you know, is important to get a patent. If you have some provisional one and then you just project, oh, we're going to have to spend 30 grand on getting the actual patent, that's going to be pretty, you know, the investor's going to be happy with that. You know, just to know that it's going to be protected once they invest in it. So, okay. And then financing activities. Does everyone know what dividends are? Okay.
I have a question about you saying don't ask for money, ask for advice.
Hmm?
Aren't you giving this information in the context of pitching, of asking for money?
No, because you're saying, I mean, it's my recommendation to say, I've got this great business idea. It's a lot like what you've done. What would you do if you were me? Can you help me out with some advice on this? Something like that. Just instead of being approaching, asking for money, it's a more indirect way, kind of a sales pitchy way to do it. It's just don't go in so direct on it because they're going to be a little bit put off from it. I mean, you know, like we would get tons of emails on a regular basis at Stelios's office where it was just, you know, lots of people running up to him on the streets and being like, take my business idea, you know, and like it was really, you know, I mean, that's you would be, you know, really put off by it. So, but like the ones that worked, the ones that he invested in, they were usually coming through in a more indirect fashion, and we would be asking him for suggestions because one of his companies was related to it and things like that.
Even for venture capitalists who are specifically looking to
Venture capital is a little bit different story, but the thing is for a lot of you guys, and maybe if you have some good contracts and some good businesses, venture capitalists are going to look at it and say, nice idea, too early stage, we're not going to do it, because it's just, you don't have any income coming in, they want to see already that the business is operational. It's if you're running a hamburger store, you've got like 2 or 3, you know, places, and you want to have 100 of them, then you go to a venture capitalist, because you've got a business already, a little bit of a business. In most of your guys' cases, probably angel investors or friends and family, but you know, that's the really, you know, basic one. Angel investors are the next ones on the list. So.
But with angel investors, you'd be pitching, you'd be asking for money, or would you be saying, can you give me advice?
Yeah, advice.
Can you fill advice in front of angel investors?
Yeah.
Can you treat it like a job interview? Because in your first job interview, you're never going to say how much you're going to pay me.
Yeah.
And wait until...
That's true. Yeah, I would say like that. Yeah, for sure.
Here under the financial activities, we have 1, 2, 3, and then other cash flows.
Yeah.
So what is the correct digitalization level for such kind of statements? Is it better to combine as much as you can, or to split as much as you can?
I split actually. I mean, like if you can make it more specific. A lot of these are quite general, and they're using finance industry terms, if you will, like capital expenditures. It's just investments in capital assets, which are like factory equipment, that kind of thing. And if you use the lingo, I mean, it's not such a bad thing. They quite understand. But instead of putting capital expenditures, if you wanted to put, investments in, I don't know, whatever, stuffed toy making machine or whatever the business is, you can make it more specific and you can split it down, some marketing, can add marketing as a thing in the income statement. So adding more is not bad. I mean, they're going to be happy to see that. A summary at the end is pretty useful though. Something that's, you don't want it to be like 10 pages of an income statement because then they just won't read it and they'll, be really miserable with it. So Do you have a question?
Okay, so you've done a lot of financial analysis.
Mhm.
So where do you find the number to ask for from the investor?
Sorry?
How much do you ask the investor for?
Okay. So, well, once you do these projections and you see how much cash you're going to need, so if you look here, it's like, actually back to the income statement, it's not turning a profit for a while, and you've got also in the cash flow statement some big capital expenditures here and a bunch of things. You kind of tally all these numbers up to figure out over the course of this 2-year period how much money are we going to need, and that's what you ask investors for, because that's what you need financing for.
And then, I don't know if we can talk about it, so if they give you the money, what kind of valuation can you ask for?
Yeah, so that's another thing, and we'll get into it in 2 seconds. There's a few different ways you can use. Yeah, we'll talk about it. I think it's coming up next. So, alright, so this is sort of the trick one. What's his favorite breakfast? It's actually full English breakfast with Cumberland sausages. Blackberry, half roast tomato bacon, eggs, bacon. It's big breakfast.
Would you say that that is a breakfast literally for champions?
Yes.
It's
Full
really
English breakfast every day, you will make millions and millions of dollars. Yeah.
Can I, sorry, just before we go into this, I want
Yeah,
to
sure.
question about the last one. So,
Mhm.